Hey, welcome back to Outbuilding. I am walking up to the well today, and it's December 10th, so it's one of the shortest days of the year. And with the solar well, we get actually pretty good flow in the winter because the water level in the well is a little bit higher just because of all the rains. So I'm gonna walk over here and I'm gonna spin back the clock a little bit and I'm gonna get you caught up to where we're at, how we tested the water, how we confirmed that it needed to have some remedy. And so then we did a sanitization called a chlorine shock. And I'll tell you how that worked out, and we'll show you what the flow looks like on this winter day going back now to the summer.
So it's been a while since we checked in with the water supply, but we got the tank up here, up on the upper meadow, and then got the surface water heading up to there, pumps running up here, and the tank's been filling, so we'll take a look here and see what we've got. It's been about 8 days since we were there last, and last time I was here I redid the plumbing a little bit on the tank, so we had a better setup to be able to empty and clean the tank, as well as to hook up a hose if we want to get some water up here in the upper meadow. But we're heading over to the tank now, see what we'll get in the tank. And then today, while I'm here, I'm going to do a test of the water. I'm going to actually do a sample and bring it into a lab, and we'll test for coliform and for some of the basic potability assessments. And if that looks good, then we can keep moving forward with this project. And then we'll test later for metals and things that might impart tastes, but then that have specific filtering requirements. Anyway, here's our tank. We got a beautiful sunny day, so the tank should be running. And we've got you see the coast out there. Not too many waves today. So we'll see what we get. Nice, so we're pumping just a little bit right now. And it looks like, it's hard, I don't know if you can see in there, but the tank's about close to halfway full. So it's probably got 700 gallons. And so that means it's pulling in about 100 gallons a day. And it's just dribbling right now, and the sun is pretty good. I'll go down and look at the pump and see what it looks like on that side. We may end up putting more solar panels in, but I'm encouraged. That's a pretty good volume of water. It's super clear. I don't know if you can see down in there, but I can see the bottom clearly where the sun's coming in. And I did the best I could to clean up this tank, but it looks good. So I'll test this later on, and we'll see what we're getting. But again, this is just a temporary tank, but we should even be able to possibly get water coming out of our... It's right up at that level, so it's right at that, the level is right near there, but it's looking good. Down here at the pump, and everything's working well here. We've got the indicators, so we've got this MPPT, which means it's just pulsing to drive the system. We may, as we said, we may want to add more array, a second array of panels, but we've got, the 2 panels up there. Everything else is looking good here. The pump's now staying dry. And again, we've just got surface piping right now, but as we get this tested, then we'll consider doing a more permanent installation and get that down in the ground. And I recently took out just a couple of the big alder trees that were shading it, and that was really kind of impacting the array. But now we've got really good exposure through mid-afternoon. If I look at the shadow on the ground, you can see that it's clocked way past noon, which would be directly into the panel. So we're starting to get into a little bit lesser amount of power probably from the panel, but we've got good exposure still, and will for another hour or two. So it's looking good. So this water test is super sensitive. So we put it on ice. We get the sample and put it on ice. And then when I take the sample, I have to be really careful to only not touch the sides of it or contribute any contaminants. So you can see I'm just peeling the ladle off, and then the water is just dropping into the tank. So I just reach underneath it and let the water pour into it and collect a little sample. There's a couple samples you keep, put them on ice. They have about 24 hours to deliver them to the lab. And then they do a quick turnaround with that test and test the water. All right, so we're back at the well, and I'm just looking at the solar panel behind you, and it's almost directly like solar noon right now. So we've got good pump. I can fill the pump. It's cold because it's running water right now, and it's filling the tank up on top. So we tested the water, and it's everything's good about it except it has coliform in it. And the kind of tests they do, so that's basically a marker for some sort of biological activity. And all they do is say that it's present or not. And so it's a super sensitive test. So if there's anything in there, they just flag it as present. So we don't know if it was a lot or a little. And it kind of makes sense. This thing had sat dormant for many, many years. And then we put everything out on the ground for 100 feet and ran tubing and rope and other things. And even that day that we were working, we were slipping in elk poop. And you know, it's just naturally occurring stuff all through here. Even just leaves and grass and pieces of wood will give you a coliform sample positive. So anyway, so the test came back with coliform. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the pump off, and we're going to put just a short, we've got a piece of pipe here that's about 10, 15 feet long, and we're just going to make a little loop. And we're going to first use that water to clean up our bucket. Then we're going to dilute some bleach, and there's about, just because it's a 6-inch casing and it's about 200 feet deep, and we've got a standing water level of about 42 feet, so that means we've got about 160 feet of water in a 6-inch casing, and that ends up being about 230 gallons. And so you're supposed to put a cup of bleach per 50 gallons. So for us, that's about five cups of 5% bleach, which is common household bleach. This, we got some just regular bleach from the hardware store. It's more concentrated, so we're gonna cut that down by a third just because it's got 7.5%. Anyway, we're gonna clean up our bucket, clean everything up with just the running water from the well, and then we're gonna disinfect the well by what's called chlorination shock. So we'll pull the casing up, we'll pour down some diluted bleach solution drop it down into the well, and then we'll cycle the well into itself, and we'll just kind of wash out the well. And so we're gonna loop this back, we'll wash it out, and right now we have solar noon, so we've got another hour or two. We'll just let that run and just run in a loop, and it'll kind of, the pump's way down, it's not at the very bottom, it'll hopefully agitate all that and get that stuff in there. And then by the end of today, we'll just leave it like that for now. And as soon as the sun stops powering the pump, which is here happens like 2, 3 in the afternoon, we'll let it sit overnight. And then before the sun comes up tomorrow and before it starts running again, we'll come back and restore this. And so then it will slowly start pumping the water up to the tank again. And it's pumping about 100 gallons a day to the tank, which is a little low because we don't have a second set of solar panels. But that's enough that it'll slowly it'll dilute that chlorine into the tank, which is 1,500 gallons. And that tank right now is sitting in the sun in the afternoon. It gets really warm, and so it'll outgas and it'll evaporate that chlorine, and it'll also be diluted in there, and it'll fill up that tank into. So we're diluting 250 gallons worth of water into 1,500 gallons of water up there, and then it'll overflow, and we'll kind of pour that out. It's going to disinfect the well, the piping up to there, everything all the way up. Then we'll let it sit for a couple weeks, and this is all stuff I've read, so we're just kind of learning as we go, but we'll let it sit for a couple weeks so that cycles out and clears out, because you're going to almost for sure get a clear reading with the bleach in the water, but we want to see that once that sort of dissipates and has sort of evaporated and flushed out, that we're retaining good clean water in there. And I suspect we will. This is pretty common, and as I've read and as I've learned, normally when you do pump maintenance, you just do this disinfecting as part of the conclusion of it, just because you're very likely to introduce things if you're setting stuff out on the ground. And certainly where we're setting it here, we can't put a 100-foot long tarp and keep it all clean and everything. So we'll do that now, and then we should have a pretty clean sanitary system from the pump all the way up to the tank, and we can sort of see what that water's like in a few weeks, and then we can continue down the hill from there and maybe sanitize as we do another round. Some people do this with some frequency, like every couple years, and so we'll just sort of see what this looks like. Now, if there's coliform getting into it from somewhere in the groundwater or something, then we have a bigger issue, because then this isn't going to remedy that. But I mean, just from what I've read, it sounds like this is going to work. So we're going to pull the head and start cleaning up and dump the bleach in there and get it disinfecting. so we got the bleach in there. You can hear the pump running, and we're just running this around in a circle. So it's just pumping the bleach back into itself, and it's going to run all the way down that liner and all those tubes. And we'll kind of move this around a little bit, but mostly just let it run. And you can see a little bit of off-gassing coming. It also, apparently, the water can discolor because you're going to kick off some scale and some other things that may be in the casing or the liner just because of the disinfecting. And so this first little pass is probably going to be, the water may be a little bit funky. Hopefully this helps. We'll see what happens. It's pretty kind of easy after reading about it. It seemed like it was going to be involved, but it's pretty easy to do. So hopefully this helps. And we want to make sure that we want to make sure that the chlorine evaporates so that we're not dumping it out up on top and killing things off up there, but it really should outgas pretty quickly, just like it would if you had a fish tank and you were trying to dechlorinate the water for that. All right, well, it's the next morning, and we came back out here in the afternoon yesterday, and it had been running for probably about 3 hours, cycling on itself. It's off right now just because the sun's low. The pump is just, it's on, it's powering up and rebooting because it's just getting its first light here. So I'm gonna take our temporary loop back hose out here and remove it and just put back the original hose. And so now we'll pump that chlorine water back up to the tank and disinfect the line going up. And then we'll see how it goes after that. All right, I'm back at the well, and I'm just gonna check and see if it smells like chlorine. It should be in pretty good shape. It does, smells like a swimming pool. One thing notable is that as I was looking at the tank, I noticed there's some scratch marks in it. It looks like the bear that lives in the neighborhood is trying to climb up on the tank and figure out where the water is. So we're not the only ones curious about how the water's looking. All right, we're back today. It's been 2 weeks, or just about 2 weeks, since we did the secondary test of this. So if you recall, we had some coliform in there from ground contamination from when we were putting the pump in. And so we chlorine shocked the well. We let that sit for about a month, and it sort of cycled through the whole system. We've been filling the tank and just overfilling the tank, and it just dumps out onto the ground every day. And so that chlorine got diluted, evaporated, and is pushed out now. Then 2 weeks ago, we tested it and got the results back pretty soon after that. And it's completely clean. There's no E. coli, no coliform. So we're excited. We got good clean water coming in. We can put more panels in to increase our output, but right now the flow is, reasonable for what we need. Today's a cloudier day, so this would be a day where it's not going, and we're getting close to when it would normally run during the day, and it probably won't run today. We're hoping with the second panels it will. So now the task is to figure out how to get the path of the pipe from here down to the cabin, and we've got a sort of a trail hacked in through a bunch of blackberries and Scotch broom. Last week we just spent like about an hour and had Karen on one side and me on the other side, and she called to me every once in a while, and I just kind of cut my way through to where she was, just so that we had a line of sight path. And now we're going to run a tape measure down there, figure out how big it is. That way we can get the pipe coming, and then we'll have to clean that path up a little bit better so we can use a walking trencher to go through there. We're going to put the pipe down probably something like 16 inches below the surface. It doesn't have to be, it's not really critical, but it will be nice to have it down under the ground so that the elk walking through and other things don't trash the pipe. So anyway, today we're going to measure and get prepared, and then in subsequent weeks we'll start trenching and putting in the pipe, both from the well up to here, which we've now got we've got our route figured out for that. We know the distance, and that we've got the pipe just running on top of the ground now. So we'll sort of, now that the water's good, we know we've got it up here and everything. When we're trenching, we'll do both trenches at once. So measurement today, and then trench in coming weeks. This measurement doesn't need to be super accurate, but we do want to get a sense of how long it is to the between the two. So for now, I'm just getting a rough measurement so I know how much pipe to get all the way back to the house. So I've got the tape laying here on the ground, kind of about where I would trench. It's just to the side of the road, and I can run the trencher there. There's nothing really to obstruct all the way in, and then I can easily grass that in when I'm done. The power, as far as I know, goes down this side. There's a junction box up there, and then the power, I believe, is buried on that side, but we'll get a locate down before we do it. And laying this out, this is another 290 feet, so 300 feet essentially from where I was here. So I was 250 to there, plus another 300, so about 550 feet of trenching from the tank down to, won't be the cabin itself, but it'll be sort of the distribution spot, our little hydrant and sort of shut off for the main pressure. And that's a drop, when we measure it with my watch, it's about 65 feet, and we'll have a taller tank. So I'll have about 75 feet of tank, or of head pressure down there, which should give us pretty good, probably about 32 PSI in the house. So I don't have much in mind for today. We had put this pole in last week here, and I'll catch you up on that process in the video next that we do. But I am just gonna do one thing today because we've got really good weather, and I wanna use that weather for some other things. Putting this second set of arrays panels on is almost easier done on a cloudy day. So all I'm gonna do is take that beer can that I started with, and I'm just gonna put a cap on our pole for now so that it doesn't get full of water. So that's where we're at, and I've got the pole in now, so next time we're out, and it's not bright sun because it's kind of hard to work on the solar system when it's got power, but we're gonna go ahead and put the second set of panels up, see how those are improving the flow, and start working on the permanent trenching, ground out the system because we don't have a permanent ground put in there, and we'll get some other things done. So if you want to subscribe, you can kind of pick up where we leave off here, and we'll get to that next step next time we're out working on the water supply. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.